guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm filming my second Toon Talk episode. I'll be going through some transfer updates from this week. I'll also touch upon that awful defeat against Middlesbrough, which I would rather forget, to be honest. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so you stay updated. As you guys know, I also work for Newcastle Fans TV on the odd occasion, so I'm buzzing to have Karl from NFTV joining me today. Karl, thanks so much for coming on. How's it going?
Yeah, not too bad at all, thank you. Really appreciate you having me on. So looking forward to talking about everything that's kind of gone on this week. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know.
Yeah, it's quite a mixed bag to be fair, but it always is, isn't it? I think
Absolutely.
The nicest thing about speaking to Newcastle fans without the Geordie accent is that it just reminds me that there are other Toon fans spread all over the world. So can you just tell the viewers, you know, where you're from and how comes you support Newcastle?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from a town just outside of Birmingham. The reason I actually support Newcastle is because my dad is originally from Cramlington, and with the colours you've got on at the moment, as you can imagine, being from the West Midlands, it's all Villa and Blues around here. So he wasn't having any of that at all, and essentially I didn't have a choice, which is fine by me. I'd sooner be a Newcastle fan than Villa and Blues. I've said that quite a lot this week, so if any of my friends are watching, apologies. But yeah, just kind of fell in love with the club. Obviously, my dad's side of the family are still up there at the moment, so going up there every other week or at least once a month was almost like Christmas to me. It just kind of got this butterflies every time we went up there, and it's just kind of stemmed from there. Unfortunately, the first game we went to was it was a 2-2 draw with Sheffield Wednesday. But just, you know, as kids say, when you're stepping down the steps and looking out onto St James's Park, it just fall in love, and that was it. No going back from there.
Ah, lovely. Yeah, for me, it was also my dad. He's not a Geordie, but he's always supported Newcastle. And I find like a lot of my Irish family, my dad's Irish, so a lot of my family in Ireland, they're all Newcastle fans as well. I guess there's something about Kevin Keegan in those days that our loyalties lie with that era. And then luckily, we've inherited that loyalty and we're also Newcastle fans.
Absolutely.
So we have a lot to go through. So what I'm going to do, I think if we just start with the negative so we can just feed onto the positive and then hopefully end on a positive. Yeah. So negative, the first thing obviously I'm going to start with is our really heavy defeat, which was Tuesday. Obviously, it was a friendly. We played against Middlesbrough and it was a 5-1 defeat. Now, in the last episode, I did sort of touch upon, I do take our pre-season friendlies with a pinch of salt. I don't tend to look too much into them just because they tend not to sort of reflect how we go on and to progress in our Premier League campaign. That being said, what I do like to look out for is who's got injured, what's going on that scene. But I guess we can't ignore a 5-1 defeat because it sort of brings me back memories of that Leyton Orient year. You know, without even, you're trying not to worry about it too much. But of course, it does send alarm bells ringing. Does that worry you? Where do you sit with that?
I'm a bit like you, where I take it with a pinch of salt as well. But as soon as I found out, because I'm sure like you and everyone else, nobody actually knew what was going on because it seemed like it completely disappeared. So, and I actually come across someone saying that we were 4-1 up. And then someone turned around and said, actually, I've just left Borough 4-1 up and Jamal Lascelles has been sent off. And I was like, there's no way. But yeah, I completely flipped. Like I was really, really shocked. And I was just like, you know, what's actually happened here? And then after watching the highlights, I mean, you know, they're not playing a ground per se. It's more of a training pitch. So I imagine that the commitment wasn't there as much. They've probably taken it as a bit of a training match rather than a pre-season match, if that makes sense, with everything that's gone on. So I think that has probably played a part as well in terms of the atmosphere, that sort of stuff. But watching Longstaff get bullied by Asan Belonga the way he did, I was like, oh my God. But I am worried. I shouldn't be, but I am worried. I am worried about it. Because at the end of the day, Borough is still a championship side and we're supposed to be a premiership side. So shipping that many goals with the defensive record that we've had throughout the season as well, I was quite surprised. Now, obviously, Lascelles getting sent off hasn't helped with that. I think Lejeune hasn't been playing very well at all, and I think that showed again in that game. That's probably something we can move on with later on in the show as well. But yes, as much as I want to take it with a pinch of salt, I'm a little bit worried.
Yeah, naturally, right? I think for me, any positives I can take from it is that I hope that it's just sort of the wake-up call we need during this transfer window, because, you know, just over a week until our opening game at West Ham. And I do actually feel this week, and this works well with the filming, this week I think talks have really intensified on our bringing in reinforcements. And if that's a wake-up call our scouting team need, then brilliant timing, because, you know, there's nothing like a 5-1 defeat to sort of get you going and, you know, make you think, right, we need to sort out our situation. That being said, before we go on to, you know, all the transfer talk, I do want to speak about our goalkeeper situation, because I spoke about this in the last episode. Dubravka is injured, and Karl Darlow, I mean, that wasn't his finest display, obviously, on Tuesday. That being said, he played, I guess, 70 minutes, you know, and Mark Gillespie is a new signing, fine. I guess what I want to ask you is that, bearing in mind Mark Gillespie is, you know, he is arguably one of the best goalkeepers in the Scottish Premier League. He kept 11 clean sheets for, I guess it was Motherwell, right? Now, that is pretty brilliant. And bearing that in mind, if you were Steve Bruce, who would you start our Premier League campaign with? Karl Darlow or Gillespie?
If I was Steve Bruce, because I'm sure my answer to Steve, if I was Steve Bruce, would probably be different. But if I was Steve Bruce, based on the amount of clean sheets that he kept last year, I think I would give him a shot, to be honest. Me personally, I would go with Karl Darlow, just because he's not someone that I'd want in for the whole season. But whenever he's come in for, you know, like a run of games when people have been injured before, he's done relatively well. And I think, you know, I've always enjoyed having him as a goalkeeper. I think when we were promoted from the Championship, and, you know, he did a job, and from there, obviously, we brought in Dubravka, who's by far the better keeper. But me personally, I would have Darlow. But then looking at it, if I was a football manager in being Steve Bruce, just after having signed Gillespie, I probably would give him a chance, if that makes sense. Yeah,
I can see what you're saying. And there are really, really big boots to fill with Dubravka, and I'm sure neither of them are looking at that, seeing it as an easy task. The pressure really, really is on. So I think I agree with what you're saying. And on paper, if Mark Gillespie is in fantastic form, then great. But there are sometimes teething problems, you know. It is a new team for him. It's a new dynamic. And I guess the best thing about these friendlies is that Gillespie is getting game time, and maybe that is sort of a way to gel him into the team. And then who knows, maybe Steve Bruce will start him in that West Ham game. We'll have to wait and see. I guess more than ever, we are really tight on funds when it comes to our transfer window, which isn't great. But so far, you know, Mark Gillespie, Jeff Hendrick, we finally sorted out Matty Longstaff's contract. Thank God, finally. So what else is in the pipeline? I guess this week we can I've picked out a few names that things are really materializing, because I don't like to touch upon, you know, those rumors which have no credibility, because we're just wasting our time. So I guess first and foremost, the name obviously that is coming up is Calum Wilson. Now, this deal, we wouldn't be able to afford him without the Matt Ritchie swap deal. So that's something to talk about. And he has had a couple of bad injuries, you know, at Bournemouth, but I guess we will play that into whatever we're offering. Now, Lee Ryder, he did a Q&A yesterday, and somebody asked him, what fees are we talking? He suggested the fee is around 20 million for Calum Wilson, and Matt Ritchie is valued at about 10 million. So with competition from other clubs, and we have a month to go, and we obviously need to close in on some more signings, he has been on Steve Bruce's wish list throughout the whole summer. I guess what I want to ask you is, would you be interested in this deal?
I think Me personally, yes. I absolutely adore Matt Ritchie. I love him. I really do love him, and he's been nothing but positive for this club. He's been fantastic. You know, his work rate. He's actually a very good footballer as well. Like he's exactly what Newcastle fans look for in a footballer. However, that being said, I was asked this question a few weeks back when we did something, and in our buy, keep, and sell video, loan video, and when it comes to Matt Ritchie, I think I surprised a few people in that I said I would sell him anyway. And the reason for that is because I think he's got another couple of years in him of good football, Premier League football, or even Championship football. And I think we can still get a good fee for him, you know, like you said, around £10 million, and put that towards a striker kitty anyway. Because I think in terms of wingers, we're quite covered on that sort of side. And I think we've got players at the moment that can fill in at left wing back, should he go. So adding Calum Wilson into the mix, I've always been a huge fan of his, and I'd really be actually surprised if we didn't get this deal over the line, because I think everyone who doesn't know is that Matt Ritchie is hugely fond of Bournemouth anyway. His family still live down on the south coast, and I think it should really be a relatively easy deal to get done, in my opinion, if he's included in it. So I'd be hugely interested in it. As much as I love Matt Ritchie, we need a goal scorer. And I've always liked Calum Wilson, so he'd be top of my list personally, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying about Matt Ritchie. I totally see that. I think he brings a lot to the squad, and he's sort of been on that journey with us, right? Like, he has been an integral part of the squad since we've been promoted to the Premier League, and it hasn't been easy. He doesn't score enough goals, agreed. However, one thing that I do find really appealing with him is his drive, his determination. His energy, it's unmatched. But unfortunately, I guess we have to ask the question, is that enough? And if a deal is being put on the table for someone like Calum Wilson, then yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, and it would make total sense.
Absolutely.
So, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, ideally, he's someone, he's that person that ideally you want him to retire at the club. Really,
yeah,
you do.
Yeah.
But if we look at it realistically, like you said, where we are, and you know, and if we want to push on, we need to get more goals into the club. And unfortunately, if he's going to be made to be part of a transfer deal to get someone over the line, unfortunately, as much as I love him and I don't want him to go, I would do it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. The next name that is coming up a lot this week is Ryan Fraser. Now, he's a free agent, right? So he left Bournemouth last season, but one thing, okay, firstly, I want to say that the free transfer thing is great. That means our limited budget won't have to stretch for this to actually be, you know, financially feasible. However, he hasn't appeared in a Premier League game since March. So he's not going to be someone that can hit the ground running and get started straight away. He certainly wouldn't be fit for our opening game, which does annoy me a bit, just because we need an immediate impact with whoever we sign. But fine, in the long run, I mean, I'm not opposed to it at all. What do you feel about it? Would you be happy if it went ahead?
I'm exactly the same as you. I'm kind of 50-50 on it. You know, I'm not opposed to it. I haven't seen enough of him this season to be able to turn around and say, yes, 100%, let's sign him. But again, you know, if I imagine he'll be talking to Matt Ritchie quite a lot as well. So he'll understand what he needs to do to succeed at the club. So if he really wants it to happen and vice versa, then I expect him to come in all guns blazing. But I am one of them with it. You know, if it happens, great. If not, I'm not fussed about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
If I'm really honest.
Yeah. I mean, there's a month to go, and I feel this happens every transfer window. Of course, there's consistent speculation all throughout, but, you know, essentially we don't really do much of our business until that end of the window in that panic phase. So it would be great if we sort of had things in the bag leading up to it like this time, just because I feel it helps the players mentally going into the start of the season. There's a bit of positivity. The outlook is different. They're thinking, you know what, there are reinforcements coming in. It's not all doom and gloom, because it hasn't been the easiest summer for our club. And psychologically, I can't even imagine how that is for the players. Us as fans have been through enough, but for the players to mentally go through that up and down of the promised land and what could have been, and then to go back to starting the season in a very different way they imagined, we'll have to see how that pans out. I guess who I want to move on to now is Dimitris Giannoulis. I don't know if I'm saying his name completely correctly there, but I gave it a go. And talk of his move this week has really intensified. Now, I'll admit I'm not really familiar with Greek football, so I had to do my research on him. And he's 24 years old. It seems like he's just come off the best season of his career, and he plays for like PAOK FC, and he's a regular starter for the Greece national team. Now, they reportedly won €6 million for him. So I guess what I want to ask you is that, would he be the answer to our left-back situation?
In my opinion, no. But 24-year-old who's had the season that he's had for that kind of money can't be sniffed at. You know, like you say, our transfer budget isn't huge this summer. So someone that at that age as well, who's making regular movements in the Greek national squad, I'm not opposed to it at all. For me, I think most other fans, that apparently there's someone else that we can get around that sort of money who's already been at the club. So which is obviously Jetro Willems.
Jetro.
Yeah,
I'm a fan.
No,
I'm a fan.
I think he's the answer personally. But again, I'm like you. I need to see more of him to actually make a decision on that, if that makes sense. But from what I've seen this season, he's worth a shot at €6 million, definitely.
Yeah.
But then, you know, we can talk about that with Emil Kraft as well. He was, what did we pay him? 1 million, I think it was, or something like that.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to the guy, but every time I've been there, like, I don't think he actually knows how to play fullback, so he could be another one.
Yeah.
So do I think he's the answer? No. Am I opposed to it? No, not for that money at all. I think that these are the types of players that we're going to be linked with. We're not going to be linked with, you know, high profile wing backs, unfortunately, because one, we can't afford them, and I don't think the draw is there for the club at the moment.
Yeah, agreed. Say if that doesn't go ahead, it just doesn't materialise into anything, would you be happy with Jetro Willems and Danny Rose? Because you didn't mention Danny Rose, so I want to ask you about him.
Yeah, I think Danny Rose didn't do as much as I expected him to. However, that being said, his Premier League experience, and he probably wasn't given as much of an opportunity as I wanted him to be given as well.
Yeah.
His Premier League experience is almost unmatched now at that position. I've always been a fan of Danny Rose. I've always thought he's been an excellent fullback, and also having that, being that another senior figure in the dressing room. I think personally, for the right money, or you know whether we can get him in as part of a deal, would be fantastic. So having those two, I think fans would disagree with me on the Danny Rose one from what I've come across, which surprised me personally. Mm-hmm. But those two, him and Jetro, are the answer for me.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I guess the thing is with Danny Rose is that we essentially only saw him play for, you know, just over 2 months. And to have that stretch cut short with the pandemic, bearing in mind he wasn't at his fittest, something in me thinks that we do need to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think Lee Ryder was asked about Danny Rose yesterday, actually, in the Q&A, and he did say that all talk about his contract is stalled at the moment, just because we're figuring out what we want to do in terms of new signings. And Danny Rose obviously moved up to the Northeast on a long-term basis. You know, he wanted to move up to us. But there is interest from European clubs from him. So that is something to bear in mind, because, you know, as much as we think we have all the choices in the world now, when push comes to shove, we will not say no to keeping him on if we're not able to get on, you know, a brand new, exciting left back sort of player. So I guess with him, I feel the same as you. I wouldn't say, you know, he showed what he's worth, I'm done. I didn't see enough. With that experience, we need that experience. We actually do. And I'm not sure what will happen with Jetro Willems. As much as I would love for him to stay, he's built up this connection with us fans, and it would be great. But, you know, anything is possible during the transfer window. There's a lot more that we don't know about that's going on behind the scenes that doesn't even make it to press. So God knows. So speaking of rumours that are doing the rounds, I did want to speak about Musa Marega. Now, there's a lot of stories going around that we have put in an offer for him. He plays for Porto. Then Sky confirms that it's absolute rubbish. There was previous talks for him in the past, but it didn't materialise. And now, no fresh offer has been put in for him. So I'm not going to waste time speaking about that transfer rumour, but there is one more transfer rumour that has a bit more credibility, and obviously that's Rob Holding. And over the past 48 hours, I've really noticed there's a lot of talk around this. Now, he's 24 years old. He is ready to leave Arsenal. So a loan move could be on the cards for him. Now, we've definitely shown interest in him, but a huge element of this transfer rumour is that Steve Bruce essentially needs to make room for him, and given the role he can offer us, I mean, he would face competition at the club. In the centre-back area, we are quite well stocked. So I guess it's a case of who would have to get on their way to make room for him. Now, Cher, Clark, Fernandez, they all have 1 year left on their contract, and they've all been they've had unfortunate injuries, So I guess what I want to ask you is, what would Rob Holding bring that our existing centre halves can't offer us right now?
So when I first heard about this transfer, one of my good friends, a massive Arsenal fan, and he WhatsApped me and said, look, Newcastle are on about signing Rob Holding. I was like, why? And that's no disrespect to him. I was just like, we have so many centre halves that on their day, arguably are some of the better centre halves in the league for me personally. Outside of the top 6, top 7, I think we've got some of the best centre halves in the league. On their day, Fernandez last season, incredible, absolutely incredible. Fabian Schär on his day has been incredible, but obviously I think he's not had his best of seasons, but obviously he's been hampered with injuries and things as well. Florian Lejeune, I'd say exactly the same thing about him. Obviously Jamal Lascelles, he's just come on leaps and bounds for the club, and absolutely adore the guy, and I think he's an excellent centre half, and the fact that he hasn't got into the England squad over people like Tyrone Mings really stresses me out. But looking at it, after it all calmed down, I thought we should be signing a striker. I thought, wow, he's actually a really good centre half. He's only 24. He's about 6'2", and he's very good on the ball, to be fair to him as well. You don't tend to get the taller guys, aren't usually the most technical on the ball. And he reminds me of a better version of, or he could be a better version of what John Stones was tipped to be back in the day, if that makes sense. Good ball playing centre half, good leadership skills as well, and the fact that he's only 24 is always a bonus. I think with the way Schär and Lejeune have been, and like you say, with Fernandez being on a 1 year contract, I am actually swaying towards getting him in, to be honest. Who I'd get rid of, I'm not sure. I haven't chosen yet, but I do think it would be a good signing.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what really entices me about him? His age.
Yeah.
Like, we can talk about how, solid and trusty our centre halves are, but if we're really looking on paper at ages,
absolutely.
I mean, injuries don't improve with age, unfortunately. We've seen that with, Andy Carroll, for example. It doesn't get better. I wouldn't prioritise that department of our squad to be getting signings, but here we are. That's about it, guys. So we've covered most of the fresh topics. It is Thursday at the moment, so by the time this goes out, if there's any new rumours, I'm going to be really annoyed, because I made sure it was real-time transfer rumours. But anyways, we can't control that. We'll just have to bring out another video. So what I'm going to do is I'll put the links in the description below for Newcastle Fans TV. And Karl, what have you guys been up to recently, and what can we expect this week from Newcastle Fans TV?
It's been busier than I expected it to be honest. Considering it's we've had the lockdown and things. I suppose everyone's had a lot of time to do a lot of stuff, but we've been really productive. We've obviously got the Black and White show coming up. You'll have Johnny and Sam's Greenwood and Mulliner show as well. They've usually got a few special guests on that they don't actually tell me about until it goes live, so I couldn't give anyone any sort of inclination to who they get. Myself, I've just started a show called Geordie Overtime, which is over on NFTV Extra, and last night went really well. Had a guest on talking about things he's doing to push the mental health movement, as well as talking about what draws people into their love for Newcastle United, a bit like what we spoke about at the start. So lots on. You know, I'm sure there's I'm not doing it as much justice as I should be, because everyone's got things going on at the moment. I forget, like, every time I'm in the WhatsApp group, like, this video going up, that video going up. But yeah, just come over and there'll be something there. Definitely.
Oh yeah, you'll be spoilt for choice. That's the thing. And the best thing about Newcastle Fans TV is the variety. Like you said, everyone is so skilled, like every single member is so skilled in their different ways, and when you put that all together to create content, if you're a Newcastle fan, then you won't get bored. There's just endless chat about Newcastle. So guys, if you don't already follow Newcastle Fans TV, all the links are below. And if you do want to subscribe to my channel for these weekly video podcasts, then do that as well. If you agree or disagree with anything that Karl and I have said, I want to hear about it below. Good, bad, ugly, don't care, just want to hear from you. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for watching, and thanks again, Karl, for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Bye guys.